Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today we have Smite versus Heisei, Quetzalcoatl or Kulukan versus Yamata no Orochi. I just love how that rolls off the tongue, don't you? Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Yamata no Orochi, you can easily get from universal to complex multiversal quite casually, with arguments for hyperversal. Now, keep in mind, he is confirmed to be able to overwhelm a pre-supercharged Godzilla. Probably a Godzilla before his Space Godzilla arc, or maybe just a little bit after that. Not too sure. But again, he is able to overwhelm Heisei Godzilla repeatedly. And keep in mind, he is also comparable to the likes of Utsuno Ikuzagami, who is capable of cutting time itself, like the very concept as well. Now, keep in mind, there are multiple statements that the Heisei-verse is just completely stronger than the Showa era, even by the end of the series. Now, there are a couple ways of scaling that, and I'm not going to be a little nerdy here and be like, yeah, you can scale them above, the time Showa Godzilla straight up stumped the Avengers, which he about to do again. I've been keeping up with it. I definitely have been. But keep in mind, there's been multiple comparisons to the Showa and Heisei era, with the Heisei era actually being superior. Like Megalon versus Batra. Batra and Megalon are equal, with Batra being in his larva form. But if he turns into his adult form, he straight up steamrolls Megalon. So again, that's pretty consistent. Now, the Showa era actually can get to multiversal quite casually. And I am not the one for that, but if you guys want more information on that, go ahead and check out my boy Godzilla King of the Monsters channel about Heisei Ghidorah, sorry, not Heisei Ghidorah, Showa Ghidorah versus Frieza, where he simply goes into detail about how you can get Showa to the more multiversal to likely higher calibers. And with that being said here, let's actually discuss Yamata no Orochi's hacks and abilities. So, yeah, this dude can breathe fire, lightning, can bend reality to his will, can manipulate hyperspace in order to affect higher dimensional beings and, beings that try to hide themselves on higher dimensional planes in order to avoid attack, so he can use hyperspace to avoid that. He also has this, I guess you could say, illusion area where it's called Tsukuyomi, where he's able to use things like godhood or, his godhood and immortality kind of just carry him a lot further on there. And so he has two different forms of lightning, that being the supreme red lightning, which is technically like his red spiral ray, if you will, and then you have his standard lightning blast as well, which I mentioned earlier. So yeah, Yamata no Orochi is actually pretty busted and all together. But let's talk about his opponent, Kulukan, Quetzalcoatl. Now, Quetzalcoatl from Smite is obviously one of the Aztec gods, a part of the Aztecian pantheon over there. And again, I'm gonna need God of War to go over there or go to Egypt. It's only those two that I want. Now, where would Quetzalcoatl actually scale? Now, considering all the gods of Smite scale to each other, we can actually look at their lore base, or, the things that they do or the things that they embody in lore. Now, beings like Kronos himself are actually the embodiment of time itself, and he's able to manipulate all forms of it. So, meaning he could manipulate every form of time that has existed. Doesn't matter if it's a nanosecond, microsecond, picosecond. He could easily manipulate this and even transcend it, which is actually pretty funny. So he's one of the few gods that Quetzalcoatl would scale to and can flat out beat, considering Quetzalcoatl is a much, I guess you could say, somewhat of a higher god in her pantheon. But yes, Kronos is literally the god and the embodiment of the very concept of time. However, there are other entities in the verse that we have to talk about. And this will come down to Atlas. Now, keep in mind, if you guys watch my Tiamat versus Marvel Rivals video, you guys will understand that Atlas is pretty much holding back the entire destruction of the entire cosmology. So everything that every pantheon has ever made and built, down to its very concepts, is literally being held by Atlas. Okay, this means that even the conceptual gods, or the conceptual gods, excuse me, like Nox, who created the concepts of hope, misery, and even love to a certain degree, she is basically going to lose everything she created on a conceptual level. This means that not only would all the other realms be destroyed, and keep in mind Idris still exists, so the 9 realms would also exist as well, and the other realms that each god has created, so every form of the underworld, every form of death and destruction, gods of chaos and order, those who created those kind of concepts would also lose everything they built. The gods themselves are able to survive this, but again, this does mean that everything they have will be destroyed on a conceptual level. So Quetzalcoatl would also scale to this. So this means she would easily fit into the multiversal to complex multiversal margin. Now, what about Quetzalcoatl's hacks and abilities? Well, she is a wind manipulator. But again, each god in this game basically has things like immortality. They have impeccable fighting skill as well, as they would each scale to some of the more skilled warriors like Mulan, Beliona, and Ares and stuff like that. So they would each scale to them quite casually. Then you have the fact that Quetzalcoatl is a wind manipulator, meaning she is actually able to bend hurricanes, tornadoes, and even summon giant wind constructs to actually aid her and her opponents or her allies in battle. So she can summon a giant tornado, make explosive tornado fields. I know it's absolutely ridiculous. And keep in mind, while yes, the game doesn't make them look as big, keep in mind that these are gods. Gods. Meaning everything they're doing is on a much more grander scale. She can also manipulate things like her size and everything else as well. She can even summon a giant wind dragon to come down and punch her opponent, even creating a wind shield to actually push her opponents back and around. So, believe it or not, Quetzalcoatl is actually ridiculously powerful across the board with her wind manipulation. As for her speed, she would easily be faster than light to immeasurable, and sorry if I didn't get that for Yamata no Orochi as well, but he would also be faster than light to immeasurable in terms of both of their respective travel and combat speeds. I do think Quetzalcoatl does kind of edge him out, however, because again, she is consistently fighting against beings that can move and pretty much react at faster than light to immeasurable levels of speed. So, with that being said here, I think it is better that, well, actually, we can just go ahead and start this match. So, who do I think wins more often than not? Quetzalcoatl versus Yamata no Orochi. The Heisei verse versus the Smite verse. Two gods, two beastly gods. Well, let's talk about it. I don't think anyone is going to complain that I think Yamata no Orochi is definitely the stronger and the more durable of the two, being able to withstand attacks from Godzilla and Utsuno Ikuzagmi to the point where he's cutting down time at a conceptual level. However, I don't think anyone is also going to disagree that I think Quetzalcoatl is faster and more agile, plus a lot more intelligent. Now, in terms of, well, who I think wins this, I definitely think it is going to depend on a couple things here. Number one, can Quetzalcoatl's overall hacks defend her from everything that Yamata no Orochi does, And again, I do think her wind barrier and stuff like that and her tornadoes can definitely counter Yamata no Orochi's fire and lightning attacks. But again, I think the overall problem is that Yamata no Orochi is overwhelming. His entire thing and entire moveset is meant to overwhelm the opponents immediately. And then Quetzalcoatl really doesn't have a whole counter for his hyperspace attack. The fact that Yamata no Orochi can simply just bend this quite casually in order to attack opponents that are more, I guess you could say, on a much higher plane. So even if Quetzalcoatl existed a bit higher than him, Yamata no Orochi still has a way to kind of like bypass that and still attack her. Meaning at the end of the day, without a real counter to that, Yamata no Orochi would honestly be able to claim victory far quicker than expected. So at the end of the day, I'm going to have to give it to him, but it's definitely going to be high difficulty. But that's going to be all for today, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends. And I'll see you guys for the next matchup, which will be Drogon versus Rathalos. Peace.